Yep, I pay attention.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rutherford County Schools work session tonight. First order of business on your agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I get the honors tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You follow along on your agendas there. Number 4, does anybody want anything moved on the agenda? If not, giving you a second here. Number 5, consent agenda. Anything there that you want moved to the regular agenda on Thursday night? Okay, if not, we'll go to 6, which will be visitors on Thursday, and facilities. And Mr. Director, take it away.
Okay, the first on facilities is the David Urey additions and renovations. This is a deductive change order. Same construction company has submitted a deductive change order in the amount of $30,169 for the David Urey additions and renovation project. This would reduce the contract amount for the construction from $2,518,000 to $2,487,831. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve a deductive change order submitted by same construction company for $30,169 at David Urey School Additions and Renovations Project. This will decrease the contract from $2,518,000 to $2,487,831.
Questions from the board? Probably not on a reduction.
Mr. Carty's back to his usual now there.
Everything okay, board? Part B.
Part B is the Smyrna Middle School additions and renovations change order. Same construction company has submitted an additive change order in the amount of $161,567 for the additional scope of work during the Smyrna Middle School additions and renovations project. The additional scope of work consists of additional sidewalks for student safety, fireproofing, and fire marshal changes and additional paving at the site. This will change the contract amount for the construction of Smyrna Middle School additions and renovations from $10,045,800 to $10,207,367. Recommend approval. The motion to approve the additive change order submitted by same construction company for $161,567 for additional work Smyrna Middle School additions and renovations project. This will increase the final amount from $10,045,800 to $10,207,367. And he can explain to you, a lot of this was fire marshal changes too, which occurred to us, at Rockvale also, kind of in the middle of the project.
Mr. Clardy, any comments? This is self-explanatory.
Just things that were unforeseen. We tore into a lot of places up there that hadn't been investigated. Added some sidewalk at the back to get kids across there safely and different things like that. We even, I think we even had the architect to pay close to $50,000 on odds and ends that we felt like was his responsibility.
I was told by a person that had been involved in that a little bit, said this when they went in there to do some work and tear some stuff out, that it virtually just fell into dust as it came off the wall. It had been up there so long.
There are several instances like that.
Yeah.
Well, it was almost 60 years
Right,
old.
right. We're awfully close to completion, aren't we?
Yeah, there's just like a few things back on the cafeteria that's added on. They're getting that finished up. Front's been cleaned up. It had an initial electrical inspection. It liked a few odds and ends. So I'm looking, to have a certificate of occupancy any time on that.
I would assume that we improved our portable situation considerably.
we did. But, you know, it seems like these days all we're doing is moving kids from outside to inside, and the seats are taken back up again.
I drove by this morning, Mr. Chairman, and the front really looks good. I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Board, questions on Part B? Break.
Number 8 is financial matters. A is a payout of vacation days for director. After Mr. Waston's retirement, local government audit requested board approval in the future for the director's vacation payout. Any 12-month employee can finish a school year with up to 66 unused vacation days, and budget amendments to fund these payouts when a staff member retires are a routine item most years. Recommend approval. Motion to approve paying director of schools for up to 66 of his unused vacation days upon retirement.
Questions from the board?
I don't have that many.
Part B.
Part B is changes to the 2018-19 budget due to grants and state changes. We have 3 changes in the 2018-19 general purpose school budget that increases both revenues and offsetting expenditures. The total increase is $393,065 in grant revenues and a state flow-through payment. These changes were mentioned at our joint meeting with the Health and Education Committee and the Commission's Budget Committee. We have been awarded 2 voluntary pre-K grant positions. Our total increase for voluntary pre-K is $266,145. Our CTE grant has been adjusted down by $3,847 based on the degree and experience of our new employee. We are budgeting $115,767 in state flow-through payment for internet connectivity and offsetting expense. The state has changed the accounting for the individual education accounts, and $15,000 in basic BEP program IEA revenue will offset the $15,000 expenditure in line item 71200-599 BEP IEA payments. The net effect of these changes on the funding of the budget is 0, since revenues equal expenditures. The recommended approval of the motion is to increase the 2018-19 general purpose school budget by a total of $393,065 in additional grant and flow-through revenues, and the $393,065 in offsetting expenditures as presented.
Board questions?
Okay, you just change it for, okay. Number 9 is an information only. This is our bus report, transportation update. The Transportation Department has sent a letter to all contractors and drivers advising them of the bus contract award application procedures and explaining the first and second priority list. The lottery drawing will be held for the second priority list on Wednesday, June 13th at 9 a.m. in the boardroom. The deadline for application is Wednesday, June 6th, so that's tomorrow for applications. From August 2017 through May 2018, we have paid $278,145 for Atlas Transportation compared to $216,680 in 2016-17. I was talking to that Mr. Snell. That's about a 28% increase. Atlas is your homeless, that uncovered under McKinney-Vento Act, that federal. That's a pretty good increase in 1 year. We have pulled 740 videos this year, 2017-18, compared to 629 videos last year for 2016-17. Buses traveled a total of 20,632 miles per day, which equates to 371,376 miles per month, or 3,713,760 miles per year in 17-18, compared to 19,690 per day, or 354,420 miles per month, or 3,544,200 miles per year in the year 16-17. We had 29 accidents with 4 injuries this school year, compared to 25 accidents with 17 injuries last year in 16-17. The injuries occurred when bus number 185 was stopped, letting students off, and a car hit the back of the bus, resulting in 3 students and the driver being injured, none seriously. Utilizing the iNow student database through May the 7th, 2018, we're showing 26,418 students assigned to buses compared to 24,701 at the end of October in 2017. There are 21,257 students assigned to buses that live 1.5 miles or further from school compared to 20,075 at the end of October 2017. Looks like the number of people riding is up. I mean, not just our growth of students, but because that's more than our growth of students.
With a 2.7% regional unemployment percentage, I really would have thought the Atlas program would have dropped some. It's evident that it hasn't, but I really would have thought logically, with unemployment being that low, that our Atlas issue would not have grown.
You know,
which has an increase. But the other factor to bring into play is the trip itself. We're seeing more and more longer trips, which will increase the number of miles that we have to take. In other words, Laverne to Walter Hill, or from Eagleville to Laverne.
Sure.
This is, of course, McKinney-Vento is a federal law and
Right.
requirement. But if a family's house burns down and they relocate to somewhere else in the county, or sometimes out of county, you even have to work it out, they have to be transported back to their original school.
Wasn't
Federal law, so, or other situations where they may be, become what's considered homeless under that broad definition at the federal.
Did we not in '07 and '08 grow substantially when we had the giant recession? Was that not when it really kicked in, though?
Well, Ms. Bush reminded me of something that I left out, and that is we began this year with foster care falling under Atlas.
That makes okay.
That really adds to that amount.
Yes, sir.
So now we have to have foster care coming back to their home or the school where they were at, and now that they've moved to another foster care home, they are transferred back.
And so foster care is considered homeless, is that what they're looking at?
Yes, they're in that same law now.
Any other questions, board? And for the ever-popular policies.
All right, this will be our second reading this time, I think. The first one is policy 6.405, which is medicines. The purpose of this revision, the state board made changes to its policy on medication to address students with adrenal insufficiency. The policy changes included align policy 6.405 to the new language. So recommend approval. The motion is to approve policy 6.405 as recommended by the policy committee on second and final reading. Policy 1.407, school district records. The purpose of this revision, pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 107-503, records requests may be submitted in person or by telephone, fax, mail, or email. This statute also requires the board policies include the contact information of the public records request coordinator. Policy 1.407 is updated to comply with this statute. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve policy 1.407 as recommended by the policy committee on second and final reading. And policy 2.8001, travel reimbursement. The purpose of this revision, this policy has been updated to reflect the current language of the State of Tennessee Comprehensive Travel Regulations. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve policy 2.8001 as recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading. Policy 5.108 is supervision. The purpose of this revision, the policy additions include guidance to employees who either issue an order of protection or have an order of protection issued against them to inform their supervisors immediately of the order of protection. Recommend approval of the motion to approve Policy 5.108 as recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading. Then Policy 5.701, substitute teachers. The purpose of this revision of Policy 5.701 has been updated to clarify the entity designated to maintain a list of substitute teachers. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve Policy 5.701 as recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading. Policy 6.200, attendance. The purpose of this revision, Tennessee School Board Association updated the truancy portion of this policy to comply with Public Chapter 379 regarding the progressive truancy intervention. This law goes into effect on July the 1st. Recommend approval of the motion to approve Policy 6.200 as amended on second and final reading. Policy 6.2011, voluntary pre-K attendance. Purpose of revision. This is a new policy recommended by the Tennessee School Board Association to comply with State Board pre-K attendance policy guidance. This policy is necessary in order for districts to comply with the terms of the state grant. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve Policy 6.2011 as recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading. Policy 6.304, student discrimination, harassment, bullying, cyberbullying, and intimidation. The purpose of this revision, Tennessee Code Annotated 496-4503, requires local education agencies to have policies that define harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying. The current version of 6.304 does not define harassment. It has been updated to include the definition that was provided by Tennessee School Board Association's model policy and TCA 496-4503. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve Policy 6.304 as recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading. Policy 6.319 is the alternative school programs. The purpose of this revision, the State Board made changes to its policy on alternative school programs to remove outdated language and clarify minimum requirements. The policy changes include align Policy 6.319 to the new language. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve Policy 6.319, recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading. And of course, we're doing this so that Ms. Bush can get them in the student handbook, since they take place at the start of school in the fall, or July 1, actually, most of them.
Questions, Board, on any of these policies?
No, and the whole board served on the Policy Committee and has been over these several times, as you usually say, for people that may be watching us on TV.
Moving on to the last page, insurance update. Anything?
Yes, Cigna has created a 24/7 hotline for veterans and their families, and you don't have to be a member of Cigna Insurance. And the risk management group, they're going to be advertising this on the local radio and TV channels, so be looking for that. They brought this to our attention last week at our new teacher orientation, so it's additional crisis helpline for our veterans.
Questions from Ms. Anthony? Dr. Anthony, excuse me. Director's update.
Mr. Spurlock and I will attend a meeting with the commissioner tomorrow morning. Feedback on TN Ready. You got anything you want us to say? That's is one of the titles for it. So
I imagine everybody in the room's got something to say. I tell you what, let's let Mr. Zago be our voice.
Hopefully we can kind of find out what the plans are going forward. I mean, that's at the point now where we kind of need to know maybe what's going to happen next year. We also are in the process, some of the commissioners, Commissioner Phillips specifically, mentioned to us they would like for us to try to plan further out. We do our 5-year building program, which you revisit every fall. But in the recent weeks, and the other thing that's, of course, happening in Rutherford County now is that some of our secondary roads, some of the feeder roads that go to our school are really insufficient, especially when you get to high schools and that sort of thing. So we'll probably do this with you on the 14th when we have our budget meeting, but we're going to probably come to you with the potential to purchase up to 3 pieces of property that may take us out 10, 15 years or more out in projecting forward. That would then give county commissioners and other and planning to look at any other roads or infrastructure things that might be associated with it, to go ahead and try to get ahead of this curve a little bit, get the properties in place, because the numbers are coming and we just need to be ready, I think, to do that. And this kind of complies with what they request, which will put us in a better position if they'll purchase this property to move forward as the growth occurs. So we'll outline that for you and talk about the growth and areas, and much of it is the property that you've already, as a board, observed, you went to see. So it's not a lot of new stuff here that be there. We'll lay that out for you. So thought that was a pretty good idea to try to get ahead. And they borrow. Rutherford County does a bonding in August. So it would be good if we could get in that borrowing session, because they tend to do it only once a year, once every 18 months, something like that. You know what time of the month they do that borrowing? So it could be any time. She hadn't told you what time?
Best time, place, and issue.
I guess the issue that we're concerned with as a committee and as a board, Health and Ed, Budget, Finance, full commission, so that it could be in place maybe by August. So help us kind of track that with some deadlines so we can make that target if you've got some of that.
Well, and hopefully by going to Health and Ed this month, the commission can give authorization to the county mayor and the finance director to proceed. They can authorize the borrowing, which is what they generally do, to proceed at an auspicious time.
Mr. Odom, with all the criticism that the commissioner has taken here, particularly this year, but even in the past, and listening to Mr. Zago describe tractor and trailer trucks of paper pulling up at our schools, what I would hate would be lost is that we do need online testing. I can't imagine trying to handle that kind of paperwork going to our schools with 2,000 plus students. So I think the commissioner needs to hear that, hey, yeah, we had issues, but if there's some way to fix it, we need online testing, and re-emphasize that point with, and I assume that she still believes that, but she's
already heard that.
Okay.
It's interesting. Initially, right after when all the issues were occurring during the testing, they came out with a statement, well, we'll phase in, we'll do all high school next year, and we'll do paper pencil with all the others. And she asked directors and test coordinators in districts to give them feedback on that, and the majority came back with what you're saying. We really need to do online middle through high. If you can have confidence and you can get the platform working,
yes, sir,
it would certainly be better. I also sent her in writing in that if you're going to do paper pencil tests, let's do like we did several years ago and put all of Johnny's tests together. That's him, because they are based on the student numbers. They're all organized, and they came boxed to us this year. You had subparts A, B, C, but you had math, you had ELA, you had science, you had social studies, and they were in different boxes and scattered. Our people spent hours trying to get Johnny's work together, trying to do this. So at least on the paper pencil, which probably will be at least through 5, it would still be better if they would bid it out to put it in a booklet form for the student. help us.
You may need to kind of give her a pat on the back for going in the right direction, just that they haven't been able to implement it properly. So hopefully that's coming down the pike.
I may be able to tell you more Thursday after the meeting tomorrow. Maybe she'll give us a hint of, because they're supposed to decide this month. Earlier they were saying because of the contractors with Questar, that they were supposed to try to decide something this month going forward into the fall, because, you know, our Holloway School and those that are on the block system test in December, so it's not something that you have a year to get ready for. It'll have to be ready for those that have to test in December at the end of that semester.
I heard, like many of you did, since we were all here, Mr. Phillips' comments. He's a friend, and I served with him for 8 years. I don't know if confused is the right word or not, but I was certainly concerned about it. There's nothing to be gained by and a lot to be lost by ill feelings between the school board and the county commission, as all of you know. His comments were really two things, and I've heard it, well, at least 4 times in the last 4 or 5 months, pretty much the same comments from him. And one thing that he asked us to do, I believe, was to help them lobby the state legislature. And I'd just like to point out that we have a liaison, Ms. Moore, right over here, who actively pursues that, certainly when they're in session, and sometimes when they're not in session. And we have repeatedly invited them, the state legislature, to our meetings. In the last 4 years, the only state legislator that has ever returned a phone call to me that is in office now was Dr. Terry. And so it's not that we're not lobbying them. I know many of you have called and emailed them, and we just don't seem to get a great deal of action. The other thing that Mr. Phillips is concerned about, and I certainly see why, was the tremendous expense, of course, and we know in this room that it is pretty much driven by the tremendous growth that we have. That's why we build schools and add teachers, and the budget goes up every year. There's very little that we can do about that, and Commissioner Phillips is the chairman of the Planning Commission. I mean, I don't know how you can have more influence than that. So I think there's probably some truth to what he was saying, but on the other hand, our duty, as we discussed this many times, is to request from them what Rutherford County students need. And I think we do a good job of that. And I greatly appreciate them, at least to this point, approving, if that's the right word, what we sent down there and to them. And as we said last week, I thought our Mr. Sandvig and Mr. Clardy and Director Odom did a great job of presenting that to them. But at any rate, okay. Are there any other comments on that, or you have anything else, Mr. Director? Okay. Speaking of liaisons with the state, Ms. Moore, do you have anything on TLN at this time? I have a report on Thursday. Okay. And I guess, Mr. Holliday, we can call you a lobbyist in Washington, I guess. And that's true. But you're our liaison with the federal government. And do you have anything tonight, or are you waiting for Thursday? Or?
Well, I'll just mention yesterday the NAACP
filed a lawsuit against the Department of Education at the federal level, and it really has to do with the Department of Education's perspective on civil rights within the school system, and the DeVos edition of the Department of Education has been a more narrowed focus on some of those issues, and there have been times when the National School Board Association has advocated for a more narrow focus, that sometimes the Department of Education would come in and have a very expansive and intrusive investigation when any type of civil rights violation came across. And so it's kind of a arguments on both sides of that issue, things to be concerned about. We certainly want to be aware of all of our students' rights and the way we address those, and yet we are always on guard for federal overreach. So that's the current events as it pertains to the Department of Education, and then of course Congress is continuing to work on the reauthorization of the Carl Perkins Career and Technical Education Act, and Senator Alexander's office still holds that as something that he would like to get accomplished before November. So we'll see if it comes through.
Questions for Ms. Moore or Mr. Holliday from board members? If not, general discussion by board members. Anything?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just kind of echo your comments about Commissioner Phillips and others that have encouraged us to help the process. I feel like that we've been very effective in communicating an anti-voucher stance, and in a lot of ways the state legislature has responded to that and backed away from vouchers, and that's certainly a good thing. Perhaps the lesson to take away from that is for us to be very, very specific. We said no vouchers, and I think that many of our legislators today would say that they're not in favor of expanding vouchers. One of the things that I've heard in the budget season that we're completing was just the absurdity of the state's investment through the BEP formula for new facilities, that they fund that at $139 per square foot. And we are amazed that Mr. Clardy can deliver to this county, uniquely in the state, $190 per square foot. And there's no other place in the state where they come even under $200 a square foot. And yet the state funds at $139 a square foot, and that's a specific place where we can target. We can speak directly to the commissioner as well as legislators and say that number's got to change. That number has got to change, because when we are growing at the rate that we are, we've got to have that additional funding. They have responded somewhat in funding nurses, but we looked at and kind of discovered the one social worker per school. And the legislation that came out about that, and yet the state would offer no funds whatsoever in order to support that. It's another place where we can specifically challenge our lawmakers. And so I just echo again, they want help in funding this and help in lobbying. I think the discrepancy of $139 per square foot and no funding for social workers are things that we can share with constituents in this election season. These are places where you who are running for state office have to respond.
And I think too, to be fair here, and I certainly want to do that, the county commission is in a tough spot as well. If the state, if we request something that our students need, and we put it in our budget and ask the state for money to pay for it, and they send down one of those unfunded mandate things, and the county commission has two choices. They can either turn us down, or they can raise taxes to pay for it. Well, my question is, who actually raised the taxes? It's the state legislature that raised the taxes by putting an additional burden on us and on the county commission, and their name is the one at the bottom of any tax increase, which looks like, thank goodness, it's not going to happen this year, which is good. But Mr. Holliday's overall point is, I think, absolutely correct, just in general. If we don't, if it's not just us either, it's a lot of school systems. If we don't get some help from the state in concrete and buildings, it's not going to be a pretty sight, and it's not pretty now, and it's not going to be pretty 10 years from now either.
Mr. Chairman, I failed to mention another report that I should bring you up on. Sunday, we actually had our final 2 graduations, I guess, for the year. The first one was the adult high school, which are students who receive a regular Tennessee diploma. For some reason, life happens sometime, and they may be close and finish it. We have a program where they go and can earn that. I guess one of the highlights, there's 19 of those, one of the highlights, there was a mother-daughter graduating Sunday. The daughter came in and said, I'm going to go back and finish my diploma, and encouraged the mother, and she came too and finished her diploma. So that was a nice time to see the two. Then we did go over to Blackman High School for, they don't really call it the GED, it's your equivalency diploma. Most of the time it's the high set now. There was 177 this year. I think this received it. There'll be some more this month, some more in July. Of course, what Rutherford County Schools does in that equivalency diploma is we do furnish them the building over here to work, and we do some funding for the secretary and for the person that heads that up, but that's really through the state's labor and workforce development. So I was talking to some of our people, and they've served roughly 800 people this year in that program, and that's anything from people, adults trying to learn ESL language to get an alternative diploma, that sort of thing that they're doing. So it's something you do for the citizens of Rutherford County. If people are listening to me on TV or internet or something, if you have someone in your home or household that might be interested in earning their high school diploma, do not have it yet, contact our adult education department of Rutherford County Schools, because there's really not a charge for this, folks. I mean, it's not something that you're going to pay for other than your time to come in and learn that. So great opportunity that the board's doing for the citizens of Rutherford County.
Mr. Odom, also on Sunday afternoon, there was a situation where a student had left high school because he was sure that he was an adequate enough student, and he was indeed a good student, but he had turned 18 and knew he was heading to the military and said, high school, what do I need that for? And only to find out that the United States Marines said, oh yes, we absolutely expect to find a high school diploma, and you will need that. And the adult education process was the one that filled in the gap there. He was not present because he was already in basic training, and but the staff were very complimentary of his efforts as well. And so catching them any way we need to send them in a good direction.
Anything else, Rube?
Did we ever get an official head count for this school year? What is the official student population attributed to this school year? Do we know that?
It's about, for K-12, about 44,800 and something. It got really hard towards the last of the year because of some software issues with students, the alternative school and the other, where it was very difficult to tell. The state will pay us an ADM based upon what 3 months, Mr. Sandvig, do they? Second, third, sixth, and seventh. So that number will be somewhere in that range, depending upon what, and they're weighted, what that weighted average comes out. But almost 44 or 5, but you've got over 45,000 if you count pre-K And then the special ed preschool that you serve, the 3-year-olds. Remember, we serve them with certain special education needs from age 3 till they turn 22. So when you throw that in, we're quite a bit over 45,000 served.
I suspect next year will be really close to 46,
I
if
would
not over.
say so.
Anything else on general discussion? Reminds you, we meet Thursday, 5 o'clock, all right, with this agenda. And tomorrow is, we got a Gary Clardy thing, don't we? Is he taking us all to Longhorn? Is that the plan? Okay. Mr. Clardy, is there a time you want us to meet you at Longhorn, or, and are you are paying?
I'll
tell
meet
that.
you over there about 3 o'clock.
I think, are we meeting up the other building? Okay, and what time is it? 2 to 4 tomorrow afternoon, so, anything else? Nothing else? We're adjourned. Thank you so much.